from the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador. I am Estefania Bravo, and this is From the South. We begin in Argentina today, where the second day of the first Worldwide Forum on Critical Thinking is taking place. A week ahead of the G20 meeting in that country, Latin American leaders are hosting. The theme of the event is fighting for equality, social justice, and democracy. During the four-day meeting, leaders are discussing social issues affecting the region. Political scientist and member of the Spanish party Podemos, Juan Carlos Monedero, sat down with Vice President of Bolivia, Álvaro García Linera, who expressed his optimism for the left in Latin America.
I'm convinced that this won't last, that the long neoliberal night will turn out to be a short one.
Y ahí es donde nos toca a nosotros reconocer lo que hicimos bien,
our responsibility to see what we've done well
lo que hicimos mal.
and see what we have done badly.
La izquierda tiene que volverse a preparar para tomar el poder en los siguientes años.
The left must prepare to take power within the next few years.
Our correspondent in Buenos Aires, Edgardo Esteban, is at the Claxo Forum and brings us more.
Today is the second day of the World Forum on Critical Thinking. There are over 7,000 in attendance. They are following closely as various panelists, such as the Vice President of Bolivia, Álvaro García Linera, participate today. García Linera spoke about the alternative ways of building leftist political forces and social movements like what we saw over the last decade. Also today, Argentina's Mothers of the Plaza de Mayo will be speaking about the difficult situation that human rights organizations have faced under the neoliberal policies. Former President of Uruguay, José Mujica, is also presenting alternatives at this forum where over 300 guest speakers from across the world are presenting. There's a total of 50,000 people participating this week, all of whom are here to discuss a progressive look into the future.
We thank Edgardo for that report. And moving on, Brazil is marking the Day of Black Consciousness to bring awareness to the Black struggle in the Latin American countries and to raise awareness about their contribution and worth. The day is observed throughout Brazil through social movements. The landless workers movement is recognizing the country's quilombos and their struggle for land rights and sovereignty. The movement is also paying tribute to Black artists, LGBT activists, and elected officials involved in the struggle for equal rights. And the founder of the rock band Pink Floyd has been visiting communities affected by oil pollution in the Amazon region of Ecuador. On his return to Quito, Roger Walters told the media that the law must serve us all, not just the Chevrons of the world. He also spoke about the situation of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. He said that current Ecuadorian government should defend his right to asylum as the previous government had.
After a while.
And in a blow to U.S. President Donald Trump's immigration agenda, a federal judge has temporarily blocked his order to ban migrant asylum seekers from illegally crossing the Mexican border into the U.S. The ruling could have an immediate impact on thousands of members of the migrant caravan currently gathering in Tijuana. It effectively opens the door for more members of the caravan to request asylum in the U.S. The judge said that the president may not rewrite immigration laws to impose a condition that Congress has expressly forbidden. The Trump administration is forbidden from enforcing the new rules until the court case proceeds on November 19th. And Central American migrants participating in the migrant caravan continue to arrive in Tijuana, where they'll ask for entrance and asylum at the U.S. border. These are images from a short time ago showing migrants heading for a city park in Mexicali. After gathering there, the group plans to walk to Tijuana, where members of the first caravan group are camped out and awaiting processing of their asylum requests. Meanwhile, new groups are continuing to assemble to embark on the long journey from Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador.
This group you see here is planning to go to Tijuana to see if they can accommodate us or to see if we can get by over there. The truth is that we are a large crowd and we want to see how we can head to Tijuana, even if we can get rides or at least get on the back of trucks, or maybe catch a bus and go bit by bit and see how we can help anyone who couldn't make it. The truth is that there is no room for us here in Mexicali.
The idea of the caravan was for all of us to stay together since the day we set out. They say that the meeting point will be Tijuana, not Mexicali. We are here because the shelters over in Tijuana are full.
And after being temporarily closed down overnight, the border crossing of San Isidro has been reopened. Authorities say it was closed to beef up security with around 100 soldiers installing barbed wire along the crossing. And the government in Colombia has agreed to resume dialogue with the students' movements after 40 days of general strike to demand an increase in the education budget. Meanwhile, others from the most remote regions in the country are marching to the capital to support the strike. More in this report.
Students from different regions of the country are headed for Bogotá. They plan to arrive there at the end of a 14-day march, which denounced the lack of will by President Iván Duque to heed the calls of the students.
We receive the children of the Manigua with arms wide open because they're traveling 600 kilometers of rebellion and are fighting all the way to Bogotá, to the cement jungle from the Amazon. And because, with all the love we receive, we're continuing this struggle, which is the national student movement.
In the midst of improvised community dinners, the 14-day of indefinite strike was complete. Students asked for resources for the country's 32 public universities.
We've been walking from the Espinal municipality for 6 days. We joined the march of the Southern Amazon of Columbia University, which has been active for more than 14 days.
Students reject the criminal ways in which they've been treated by the state and the public for abuse in peaceful mobilizations.
They ignoring us is also repression, which has been applied to us since we left our territories. They persecute us and threaten us.
From Cauca, another group of students also marched toward Bogotá.
We started a march towards Bogotá to defend public education, to defend our society and our basic right to education. The public force has been repressive against the student movement.
University teachers and workers also announced that they will join the strike.
The teachers of the university community are pleased to support the student movement because we also defend public education.
For November 22, indigenous communities will start another indefinite strike. On the 23rd, transport workers will do the same. And on the 28th, the big national strike of students, teachers, ethnic communities and worker unions will take place to protest against the counterproductive policies of Iván Duque's government.
Security forces have clashed with students and pro-indigenous activists in Chile during a protest in front of the presidential palace in the capital, Santiago. Police vehicles sprayed water against protesters who were calling for the resignation of Interior Minister Andrés Chadwick. This comes almost a week after Mapuche community member Camilo Catrillanca was killed during a police operation. Security forces also used tear gas in an attempt to stop the demonstration.
We've always known that in Chile they are repressing the indigenous people. This war started a long time ago. This repression has been in place for many previous governments because they want to throw the Mapuche off their lands to establish forest industries.
It is not enough that these people resigned. The ones who were in charge of the operation should also be fired.
People also protested in the Mapuche community of Temucuicuy, where Catrillanca was from. Clashes between community members and the police left at least 6 people wounded, a pregnant woman among them. And people abroad are also condemning the murder of the young Mapuche activists. Hundreds of people gathered in New Zealand to demand that justice be served during the Chilean President Sebastián Piñera's official visit. Former Venezuelan minister and diplomat Ali Rodríguez Araque has died in Havana. Rodríguez Araque served in various positions under late President Hugo Chavez and President Nicolás Maduro. He was known for being a dedicated public servant and socialist who also held the position of Secretary General of UNASUR. He was 81 years old. We'll take a short break now. Don't go away.
Telesur brings you special interviews with social and political personalities. Monday, from Washington. Tuesday, from Mexico. Wednesday, from Caracas. Thursday, from Quito. Friday, from Havana. Analysis about our continent's reality. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. November 24th will mark the 2-year anniversary of the peace agreement signed between the Colombian government and the FARC. In this special series, Telesur takes a look at the details of the agreement, this time analyzing its plan for rural reform.
2 years ago, Colombia's oldest armed conflict came to an end, opening up a new chapter in the country's history in which dialogue would replace weapons.
We have moved forward despite many difficulties. The armed conflict was stopped. The loss of life and the bombings stopped. People appreciate this change, but even so, social leaders have continued to get killed, and it's sad to see that this violence continues.
One of the most ambitious points of this agreement is the comprehensive rural reform, which sought to resolve rural inequality. 2 years later, little progress has been made.
We planned the creation of land fund, which we'll make with the lands we recover for the state in order to give lands to those who don't have them. Right now it is very difficult because ex-combatants haven't received lands to start their productive projects. Most of them are campesinos, and all of them want to settle in the countryside after the enforcement of agribusiness initiatives, but they have no lands to do it.
This is a concerning situation. Recent studies made by public and private universities highlight that during these last 2 years, the rural reform has only increased by 13.86%.
This is totally disappointing. This process made us believe in the coming transformation. Sadly, nothing of what was planned with the peace agreements has been made.
The lack of action from the Colombian state, added to violence, risks the agreements and lives of those who live in Colombia's countryside.
Today, violence is returning to these territories. This is getting worse, and it's affecting the poorest in Colombia. More social leaders keep being murdered, and the threats and persecution against campesinos, Afro-descendants, and indigenous people have increased.
The situation in Colombia is critical. According to a recent study by Oxfam Colombia, the country is the most unequal in Latin America in terms of land distribution. Only 1% of the biggest ranches in Colombia represent 81% of the territory. Many Congress members insist in supporting a neoliberal system that goes against the agreements and those who day by day work the lands.
The lack of support for new systems to access lands mentioned in the peace agreements kept developing, but on the other side of the country, other policies keep alive land's concentration. It is very difficult to change the system model applied in the rural areas. The agreement says one thing, but the enforcement of public policies does another different.
In spite of the current discouraging panorama, those who left weapons behind are working in Congress to keep this struggle alive.
We knew that this was going to be difficult, but not so much. We didn't know the intentions of the government in regards to fulfill this, and now we find bigger challenges. But we won't quit. We'll keep fighting for peace, and that means social investment and justice.
Neither the government who signed the agreements nor the government which must enforce it have presented a reform for agro-policies, which assist in realizing the first topic of the peace treaties. That could change more than 8 million Colombian lives, victims of the armed conflict.
Moving on, a new group of Venezuelan migrants is preparing to return home under the Return to the Homeland plan. 100 people in total will return today. To date, 1,202 Venezuelans have returned from Peru alone.
Above all, what we're missing is our families, our children who we left behind in Venezuela. This is really one of the main reasons I am returning as well, because I really miss my daughter a lot. I'm going back for her. I have to return because of her. Very tough. We came here to find work, but we have encountered with hostility. But I think everybody had to see it with their own eyes to believe it. But it was very, very tough experience. Yes, I'm returning to my family, and it's because of what I've gone through here.
Peru's President Martín Vizcarra has spoken to Uruguayan President Tabaré Vázquez about the asylum claim filed by former President Alan Garcia. Vizcarra says his government will release a document explaining its position on the matter, but he insists that this isn't a political persecution.
Here in Peru, you can ask all political departments. There is no political persecution here in our country. There exists full judicial procedures. We all respect the Constitution and our laws.
Costa Rica has entered its 11th week of a general strike against a new tax reform scheme proposed by the government. It has been almost 3 months since workers have been protesting the tax reform because they believe it will hurt the most vulnerable. The National Assembly approved the new scheme, while the judiciary has questioned if it could affect the country's financing. It has become the longest strike in Costa Rica's history. Ecuadorian students have protested against massive cuts to the public education budget, a reduction of $145 million. Our correspondent in Quito, Denise Herrera, has more.
The Faculty of Jurisprudence at the Central University of Ecuador was the meeting point for hundreds of peaceful and organized students to express a clear message to the President Lenin Moreno: no cuts to public and private education in the country.
We are gathered here against the budget cut that the current government wants to make to the public and private universities. We are against the cut of $145 million to Ecuadorian education.
Ecuadorian students from both public and private universities have said that are extremely concerned about the general budget for 2019. The budget was reduced by 10% since the previous year. The students are demanding that funding be returned to higher education institutions and say that it is necessary to increase the budget and to expand access to the higher education system.
Today the students have decided to take over the public spaces of our city in order to demand that the government think this over well. They better not mess with education. Ecuadorian citizens, the students will be organizing marches around the country.
This is a government that is against the people. What we're seeing now is cuts in public spending on education and health. That's what we're experiencing. This is outrageous because they are prioritizing the needs of the economic elite and not the needs of the people.
The peaceful protest was held all throughout the main streets of the historic center in Quito. They marched toward the presidential palace with the intention to meet President Lenin Moreno, but they were blocked by police.
The police has always been the tool of oppression towards the people. Today, for example, we can see that they didn't allow us to enter. Those in uniforms also have children studying, and yet they still defend the oppressor.
The students are also proposing a discussion table which will include all sectors of higher education to discuss the budget. They warn that this is just the first mobilization of several that will be held around the country against the budget cut proposed by the Minister of Economy and Finance, Richard Martinez. Denise Herrera, Telesur, Ecuador.
The Bolivian army is showing off its military technology and the effectiveness of its locally designed and manufactured missiles, the B-1M1. President Evo Morales and his defense minister attended the military exercises, where over 8,000 soldiers also took part. Bolivia's army is currently celebrating its 208th anniversary. On Monday, Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley gave the feature address at Inter-Parliamentary Exchange with gender equality advocates. She told those in attendance that gains secured by the few cannot be counted as gains achieved by all.
That those things have now to translate themselves to the basic aspects of the Sustainable Development Goals, but at the level of our communities. Because if we achieve that, we've effectively achieved a large measure of sustainable development. There can be no sustainable development that precludes the progress of women. There can be no sustainable development that is premised on discrimination. There can be no sustainable development that precludes opportunity.
A scientific expedition will leave Colombia en route to Antarctica. 75 crew members and 35 experts are part of the scientific expedition. The scientists will work on 19 projects focused on maritime safety, geology, oceanography, and climate change. The expedition is set to return to Colombia in February 2019. November 20th is International Transgender Day of Remembrance. The state pays tribute to victims of transphobia. At least 369 trans people have been killed in 2018, according to the organization Trans Respect. According to the group, 4 of the most dangerous countries in the world for trans people are Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, and the United States. We'll take a short break now. Don't go away.
An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives, Friday, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Italian authorities have seized the migrant rescue ship Aquarius for allegedly dumping toxic metal waste at various ports in southern Italy. The public prosecutor's office in Sicily accused the charities operating the ship of illegally dumping thousands of kilograms of toxic waste between January 2017 and May 2018. The charities Doctors Without Borders and SOS Mediterranean denied the allegations and said Italy is just trying to criminalize their humanitarian work. Since 2016, Aquarius has saved thousands of migrants who have tried to reach Europe through the Mediterranean Sea. In Indonesia, a dead whale has washed ashore on Kapota Island with 6 kilograms of plastic waste in its stomach. We warn you that these images you're about to see may be disturbing to some viewers. Researchers who opened the animal's stomach found 1,000 pieces of plastic rope, 115 plastic cups, and 25 plastic bags. The 31-foot whale had also ingested a number of rubber sandals, a nylon sack. The grim discovery is causing concern among environmentalists and the government. The official report concluded that the cause of the death was peritonitis, an inflammation of the stomach lining brought about by the presence of plastic waste. India continues its outstanding run in boxing, with as many as 8 women reaching the quarterfinals in the World Boxing Championship. Sonia Chahal, Pinky Jangha, and Simaret Kaur are now a step away from possibly medaling. India may duplicate its previous best results of 8 medals from 2006. The country has one of the strongest showings in the tournament, now taking place in New Delhi. The competition was first held in Havana, Cuba. Liberian former Nobel Peace Prize winner Leymai Groen has been awarded with Bonn International Democracy Prize. Gobui said she accepted the prize on behalf of all women seeking to create peace and change in their communities. In 2011, she received the Nobel Peace Prize together with former Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and Yemeni Tawak Karman. Goni is a Liberian activist who organized the peace movement, which ended the Second Liberian Civil War in 2003. Denis Pushleon has been installed as leader of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic in eastern Ukraine after winning separatist elections. During the ceremony, he re-established his commitment to deepen ties with Russia. The separatist election was labeled as illegal by the Ukrainian government and its international allies. The conflict between the government and separatist regions of Donetsk and Luhansk has left more than 10,000 people dead since 2014. And now let's take a look at some other stories making headlines around the world.
6 Zambian civil society activists, including popular musician Chama Fumba, have appeared in court on charges of refusing to obey lawful orders. The 6 were arrested last year outside Parliament during a demonstration by civil society organizations against the misuse of public funds. They pleaded not guilty and insist they had a right to protest within the grounds of Parliament.
It's a logistical nightmare to ensure that you can arrange for 6 people to appear in court on every single day without one of you missing. Because if one of you misses, then your bond can be revoked. So you can imagine what kind of pressure that is on us. But other than that, such is life. I think, like I say, the bigger question is, can our money stop being stolen?
Clashes have erupted in Sri Lanka during a protest held by Buddhist monks. Police deployed water cannons and tear gas against protesters who were demanding the release of their Buddhist leader. The leader has been condemned to 19 years in prison over contempt of court charges. President Maithripala Sirisena has issued an apology to the monks. Thousands of workers at South Africa's largest gold producer are going on strike after the collapse of wage negotiations between the company and their union. The Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union announced that its members will go on strike at Sibanye Gold Mine after the company said it cannot afford to meet the workers' demands for higher wages. The union represents more than half of Sibanye's 32,000 workforce. Amateur fighters in Egypt have recreated an American-style wrestling show with painted faces and dramatic costumes. They have performed before hundreds of fans in a schoolyard in the city of Ismailia. Athletic moves and a careful choreography under bright lights and blaring music made the audience break into applause.
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And for our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on StarSat, channel 461 in South Africa, and channel 531 in Nigeria. Also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.
Enjoy